So Mr. Laxton, Mr. Adrian, I'm sorry if you have been waiting a while for this video, and I'm so happy you were asking it so hard, because it means that you care. A lot of times I feel like a strange, lonely sommelier in a dark cellar that nobody cares about it. And so the idea that you wanted to know something about the wine and to have a private video, this is something that moves me and makes it my job more significant, because I love to start a personal relationship with you, in the sense that if you have any questions and things you want to ask, I'm here for you. My personal relationship with Krug has been, I had my first epiphany with champagne with the Krug Grand Cuvée, and after that with the Clos du Mesnil, 1990. And to me, Krug means everything. It's like, champagne is, I call it the border wine, because the champagne is the wine that is not a wine, it is a wine. You can be really tricky with champagne. You add yeast, you add sulfites, you add aromas, and technically you can build up the flavor in the cellar, no matter the quality of the grape or the terroir. And so upon the 9,500 different champagne producer, I would say that 98% is just artificial stuff. It's a beverage with bubbles and nothing more. Upon those 2%, we will divide. There are some big wineries. I'm talking about Pommery, Veuve Clicquot. You have to consider, for example, Veuve Clicquot makes something like 20 million bottles, probably more. Even Dom Pérignon, which is a quite exclusive champagne, is actually more than 6 million. They declare 4.5 million, but probably it's more than that. So when we talk about champagne, we have to be careful to understand what we're talking about. For sure, it's something fancy, it's something to show off. But to get the good stuff, it's not easy. I don't want to even judge it from terms of aesthetical point of view, but to me, a wine that is 100% made in the cellar, it's not wine. It's a beverage with the taste of wine, okay? When we talk about Henri Lebel, which is the guy that technically selects the grape and is directing all the fermentation process and the blending process, we're talking about possibly one of the most incredible palate all over Europe and possibly all over the world. He's such a nice guy. He's so humble and he's so hard worker, and he takes so much care about the winemakers, because Krug and Dom Pérignon for sure, but Krug doesn't really own a lot of vineyards, besides Clos du Mesnil and few hectares. I would say that 85% of his production they buy grapes. This could be, lack of quality buying grapes. Depends how you buy grapes, because they follow the growers really from the very beginning when they plant the grape up to the harvest every year, and they test the soil. And so I have met a lot of winemakers. For example, is Roger Brun, which is the one that sells some of his best grapes to Krug. And he said, dealing with Henri Lebel is like dealing with, an angry father, in the sense that he wants to know everything the way. And every week he comes here and he checks all the quality of the grapes and to see if they are great. When I talk about Krug, to me, we talk about the quintessential sense of complexity. I like when a champagne is always based on different layers, and I like when there is this tight, nice acidity, rebalanced by, it depends if it is a Pinot Noir or a Chardonnay, the chalky flavor of the Chardonnay, for example, when we talk about Clos du Mesnil. Clos du Mesnil also sometimes has like some spicy aromas, reminds you like an oriental food market in a nice way, I would say. While the Grand Cuvée, in this case, is a blend of different vintages that could go up to 1990. As far as I remember, the 166, you have an ID code. You can just check on Krug website and just write the code that is on rear part of the label to see the history of the 166. The reason why I decided to put Krug, which is a wine that, somehow quite easy to find on the market, is because to me 166 and 167 represent a kind of a change in the Krug Maison. There was a before Louis Vuitton and Moet Hennessy, and then I would say that there is an after Louis Vuitton and Moet Hennessy. I'm gonna explain this. Before, it means that Krug was bought by Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy at the end of the 90s. But even before, the Krug family didn't really belong the winery. They were still running it, but they were not technically belonging. The last noble guy, I would call it, is Rémy Krug. Rémy Krug is a guy I was lucky enough to met him like more than once. We did an incredible tasting with Rémy Krug at ROSCIOLI cellar. He closed the cellar and he started to open all possible bottles, starting from the dishwasher to the owner of the restaurant, and it was an incredible night. He looks like, coming out from, I think he's still alive, it's quite old, but still alive. It looks like, a guy came out from Balzac or 19th century Victor Hugo or Dostoevsky novel. It's like with a nice foulard and beautiful and so on. I have to say that when Louis Vuitton went Tennessee bought the winery, something drastically changed. I would consider 2003 and 2000 vintages of Krug, one of those vintages that, possibly Remy Krug would have never decided to bottle as a vintage. And it started to become more similar to Moet Tennessee style. A lot of liqueur, less acidity, less malolactic, less tightness. I would say less personality. It was more difficult to recognize that wine as Krug. I had a tasting with Olivier Krug. It was 7 years ago in the cellar again after Remy. And Olivier Krug is the son of Remy. This is a private video, so I can tell you personally, don't share this with anyone. I had kind of a bad impression of Olivier Krug. Olivier Krug is not a bad person, but he looked like a marketing guy. He was just talking about marketing. So, using these keywords as Krug. We used to say that Krug is not for everyone. But now we decided that Krug is for everyone because Krug is exclusive, but you have to be good. And so we decided to change the malolactic fermentation in order to make the Krug more similar to Dom Perignon. A lot of bullshits, in my opinion, that was actually somehow killing a bit the myth of the Krug wine. And so the point is, I have to say, when we did a tasting, me and Olivier, which is the nephew of Remy, I had to tell it to him. I mean, Olivier, I think that, the style of your champagne changed. And you said, maybe yes. And I have to tell you, that's what I said, don't be so sure that, this is the right decision to make. Maybe you're going to sell more bottles right now, but in a couple of years, 3-4 years, the thing will change. And I don't know, I think you should go back, to that kind of a tightness and the crispiness, minerality, that what makes, also because this will be champagne that can age for longer. And he was thoughtful, and that's it. The tasting finished right there. And you know what? I don't know if I had any effect on Olivier Krug, but in Cuvée 166 and 167, especially 167, but 166 now is more ready to drink. There was a completely change. They went back to the ancient style of Krug. So I like to think that I, play a bit of a role in this change of a direction. So this is possibly one of the best champagne in the world again. So you can possibly see that the price is actually quite high. So take it, wine and food pairing with Krug. Oh, come on. Krug doesn't need to pair with anything than a beautiful sunset and your beloved one, or even alone. It's a great pairing, you and the wine. I would suggest to have it. Maybe if you want to have something really, really tasty, beautiful, beautiful Parmigiano Reggiano. Champagne and Parmigiano is one of our creation. The saltiness and butteriness perfectly match with the saltiness and acidity and creaminess of the Krug. Any food, any seafood is absolutely perfect. Even some truffle will be amazing. Don't actually pair with anything that has got sweetness. So I would never pair, for example, with raw red prawns that are kind of sweet. Sea scallops are a bit too fat and vulgar. Oysters I would avoid. So maybe Baja California oysters, or if I'm talking about if you come from US, if we're talking about European, I would say more Le Régal. There are more nutty, more fat oysters. Beside that, Krug is an incredible wine that doesn't need to have any presentation, and it's no problem of pairing. Now, in terms of white wines, we actually chose 3 white wines, starting from Trebbiano d'Abruzzo Valentini. Valentini is possibly, I would say, the best white wine producer of Italy. I had a vertical tasting of this guy, of white and reds, starting from the late 70s up to 2010, and it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. This is a 600 years old family. They make also beautiful olive oil, and Francesco Valentini and Edoardo, father and son, and now the father has passed away. The son is running the winery he's the icon of how to, express a soil beside the grape variety. Why I say beside the grape variety? Because Trebbiano is technically nothing exceptional. It's not a great grape variety. In France, they don't even use it to make wine. They use it just to make cognac. It's the Ogni Blanc. So when we talk about Trebbiano di Valentini, Trebbiano, we don't talk about a quality grape variety. So what Francesco De Eduardo used to say is it's not the grape varieties where you make it. They have some barrels, big barrels that are more than 70, 80 years old. And those wines have an incredible capacity of aging. I mean, I'm telling you, white wines that can be aged for 30 years in Italy, 40 years, it's not something common at all. I would say that there are not more than 2-3 wineries, and you have 2 of them. For example, you have the Novadomus over here. Sorry, you have the Quarz over here from Terlan. This is Novadomus, but I don't have the original bottle. So Valentini, I would suggest to keep this wine in the cellar for another 10 years. If you cannot resist, drink it at least in a couple of years, not now. Don't drink it too cold. Doesn't really make any sense to put those white wines in the fridge at minus 20. Or minus 20, I would say like Fahrenheit will be, I don't know, like 45 degrees or 40 degrees. Doesn't make any sense because all the flavors of the wine will go away. You just had a frozen perception. It's perfect if you want to have like a yellowtail or whatever. Some supermarket wines are perfect to serve the totally frozen because you don't get the aromas. Specifically this type of wines, I would use the Burgundy rule. The Burgundy rule, every wine served at the cellar temperature. Cellar temperature means 55, 56 degrees. Of course, it depends where you live and which time of the year is that, but if outside is like 80 or 85, maybe you want to chill it before because during the meanwhile you're tasting it, it's going to warm it up. So maybe like 50 degrees is a perfect temperature service. This is kind of a musty type of flavor. It's beautiful. There is a slightly hint of reduction. It usually goes away when the wine breathes I usually don't like to decant the wine. This is wine that supposed to be decanted. In any case, my suggestion, if you decided to open this bottle of wine, send me an email or even a WhatsApp message. You have my phone number and I will tell you exactly what to do and how to pair it. I remember we paired it with foie gras, the older vintages, so it depends. If you're drinking it in 1 year, maybe you get something like codfish would be perfect. If you are drinking it maybe in 10 years, you will have a more musty truffle flavor, and in that case, or mushroom flavor would go more from game also. But this is not a white wine that goes with light, simple fish. No, it's a white wine that can be something in between fish and meat, I would say, or medium hard cheese too. Let's move over. You have, as far as I remember, no, I'm pretty sure, you have a Meursault Perrieres from Francois Jobard, 1999. That's a bottle to drink it now. That's the experience of, when I say now, you receive the wines, I think like a week ago. Leave the bottles there for maybe a couple of weeks. They need to settle. We always do a perfect shipping in refrigerated containers. And trust me, we are one of the few that do shipments in refrigerated containers. Most of the containers are not refrigerated, but still, it's been staying on a boat for a while. So it takes the time for the wine to stay there to relax, okay? A refrigerated boat is better than the plane because there's no problem of pressure and so on, but it needs to relax. We're talking about old guys here that needs time. They're shocked by the trip, and so that wine, keep it there for a while. Serve it again and not too cold. But 1999 is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful vintage that is absolutely the right moment. Drink it now. Possibly one of the best vintages in Burgundy of the last 30, 40 years, I would say. I would include 91 in it. And I think 99 is better than 2004 and 2005. Super overrated vintage in Burgundy. That's my personal opinion. We'll be back in 10 years. If I was right or wrong, you will tell me. Perrieres, possibly one of the few Premier Cru of Meursault. Meursault doesn't have Grand Cru. And you can see here that this is a beautiful map. I can send a picture to you, so everyone shows which is the lot where they belong. Okay, so in this case, I don't think Jobard is here because this was an old. I don't see it actually. I don't know why they didn't put it on, but he's surely one of the producers, and it's divided on Au Perrier and Les Perriers Dessous, and what we are, just roughly speaking, we're not so far from, it's close to the border to Pouligny. So coming from north to south, or like from right to left, if we consider Chambertin or Fexen, the first important village of Côte d'Or, and so we will think like from right to left. Usually Meursault that go closer to the Pouligny part, tends to have a slightly more smoky and salty flavor. Meursault is usually considered the more buttery, the more creamy type of white wine of Burgundy. It has been probably the most imitated white wine in the New World. So when Napa Valley, the second season of Napa Valley, I would say after the 80s, I will include even Chateau Montelena before, they started to create Chardonnay. The idea was more to imitate Meursault than Corton Charlemagne, than Montrachet, even if Montrachet has always been seen the expensive, super luxury and niche and snobbish white wine. It's an incredible wine, the Montrachet. But so Meursault is slightly more creamy, more, I wouldn't say more Napa Valley Chardonnay, but I would say the Napa Valley Chardonnay tend to imitate more Meursault. And like sometimes happen with Americans, they make it slightly louder. Don't take it personally, even. We are masters of being loud in Italy, but you understand what I'm talking about. Something like richer, more alcoholic. So you're in front of absolutely masterpiece Meursault Perrier 1999. That is a case surely for some codfish, something slightly fat. It would be perfectly be matching with some salmon, like a beautiful wild fillet steak of salmon. But it have to be one of those wild salmon, otherwise you raise it, feeding them with a lot of shit. So Meursault Perrier and salmon is absolutely a great pairing. In this case, even sea scallops that I was saying were not good for the Krug. Okay, we'll move over. So we said Meursault Perrier. It's interesting, if you want to spend a nice fancy night with your friends, it could be interesting to open before the Henri Germain Meursault. You have the Limozin, sorry, not the Chevalier. The Meursault Limousin 2010 from Henri Germain, and after that, the 1999 Jobard Meursault Perrier. Why this must be? It's interesting because we're talking about two vineyards that are, I think, 200 meters one from the other. Limousin is a Lieu-dit, so it's not a Premier Cru, so it's slightly lower of a level than the Perrier. Doesn't mean that it's actually less good. Probably you might like this one more than the other. But we're 200 meters southeast of the Meursault Perrier that I just showed you. And there you might find a Meursault that is slightly, maybe more tight, maybe slightly hint of acidity. We're talking about a vineyard that is 180 meters on the sea, 200 meters on the sea level, while the Perrier that I showed you is 260 as far as I remember, more or less. I might make any mistakes. But anyway, it's like sea level, slightly more down, so slightly warmer condition. And despite that, the decline of the valley, the hill is like this, so you will get less minerality than the other one. But it's a beautiful, soft wine, 2010. Actually, after 99, probably 10 is the second greatest vintage of Burgundy of the last 30 years. So nice night to spend with a couple of friends or a couple of, whoever you like to share with. 2 bottles of wine, 2 different types of Meursault, starting with this, and then go to the Jobard, which I don't have because that was my last bottle. Even this one is not the one you get. The one you got was the Limousin, not the Chevalier. Maybe next time, if you like it, I can move. Now, it would be interesting, if you want to really play a bit, is to have the Quarz 2006. I think it's 2006, I'm pretty sure. There are 2 vintages, 1.6 and 1.10. This is Terlan. I was telling you about how Valentini, to me, is possibly one of the few winemakers in Italy that can age their wines. My colleague Lindsay is not here, but she was lucky enough. I was actually not available that day here at Rimessa, but Terlan, we did a tasting here, and they opened a bottle of 1955 that they told me was... They blow their mind completely. And 1955, it's a 60 whatever years old bottle of wine. 65 whatever, 60, 50 whatever, 45, 65 years old bottle of wine. Trust me, I don't think I had a lot of wines that were 65 years old, and the white wines that were still good. The oldest bottle I've ever had in terms of white was an Egon Muller 1958. We need to thank a guy called Stoker, which is, he passed away a couple of years ago. He was the winemaker of Terlan, which is a consortium. He used to hide entire big barrels, no, stainless steel vasks of wine from the owners, because he wanted to age those wines for like 10, 20 years. And he was writing a wrong number on it, or hiding them actually. And then after 20 years, he came back and he showed to the owners, guys, have you seen how good is this wine after 20 years? It was an incredible job he did. You have to think that in Italy, the concept of aging in white up to 10 years ago was impossible. It was Valentini and a few others. I would say like Mario Schiopetto, another one could be Nicola Manferrari. But, you know, we're talking about the 90s and, you know, the late 80s and the 90s. In the 60s and 50s, no way that you were aging a white wine. We were not in Burgundy. Nobody cared about Italian wines in Burgundy, in Italy. All over the world, you know, but nobody cared about Italian wines in general. There was maybe some Chianti, you know, if you wanted to get drunk with some easy wine, for sure Italy was the right country. But the idea of quality wines in Italy in the 60s, not really. Barolo was totally a known wine region. It was known for the Italians, but not for the foreigners. So he did this incredible thing about keeping the wine. The Quarz is a Sauvignon. Again, there is a huge issue with Sauvignon. Sauvignon nowadays is mainly dominated by New Zealand, some Napa, some Italians. We selected a clone of Sauvignon, which tend to give you that strong green cat pea flavor, and then they add some selected yeast that will give to the wine this strong passion fruit and lychee flavor. It's one of those wines that's so wrong. That's just a bad imitation of the French Loire Valley. I'm sorry to say, but in Italy, there is no way we're able to make a Sauvignon that is decent. French are much better. And so that's why in general, white wines, that's why the only two French wines are the whites and the sparkling, because all the others are Italian, but because I think that they are the best in the world in making whites. I'm talking about especially expensive stuff. And so when we talk about Sauvignon, usually we talk about wines that are, you know, not ripe, grapes that are not ripe, because there is a huge problem in phenolic maturation of the skin, because Sauvignon is kind of a nasty little Damien. It's not easy to deal with. It's a grape variety, not easy to grow. The reason why we started to grow is just because it was famous, Sauvignon. Maybe they like the name, I have no clue. So when we talk about Sauvignon in Italy, I'm thinking about Terlan, and that's it. We did a tasting of all Sauvignon and Riesling, and from all over the world, and this Quarz, not this one, this is a Novadomo, so this is a Terlan, but the one you had, that was my last bottle. You better like that wine, because it's beautiful, and that wine is endless. Truly, trust me, is endless. You can leave it in the cellar. If you are planning to have grandchildren, if you don't have them yet, you can leave them. This is your bottle. You're gonna have it when you will be 50 years old. This is a bottle of wine. I tried bottles that were 30, 40 years old of this Terlan, and they were absolutely incredible. You need to have, of course, a proper cellar to keep the wine. Now, I would say it's time to move to reds. Let's start for the this is the sideway wine. Like the wine is not, you know, it's not the famous brand. It's called the Valcerasa, really small niche winery on the Mount of Etna, and their wines are actually really good. They make a beautiful white wine. I might decide to give you the 2012 special edition. But again, I am slightly responsible in a good way. I hope you like the wine for this. Because when I visit the winery, we had a tasting, and especially we tasted two old bottles from their private cellar. It was a 2006 Etna Rosso and 2012 Etna Bianco. So the red and the white from Nerello Mascalese, the red, this one here, and the Carricante and other grape varieties from the white. And I said, those bottles are incredible. Especially the white, but on the red too. I said, you know, I want them. You should keep those wines in the cellar 5-6 years and then sell it as a special edition. And they did. So if this wine exists, it's because of me. So they actually sell it into kind of quite a high price. I was expecting a bit of discount because it was my idea. But to me, this is an incredible wine. Tuna fish steak. Perfect pairing. Okay? Or even a tartare, like raw meat, if you like tartare. Tuscany. Two beautiful Tuscan wines, completely different from the other. I have two beautiful stories about this one. Let's start from this one. I opened this bottle with Daniele Cernilli. Daniele Cernilli is probably he's the director of Gambero Rosso. Daniele Cernilli is kind of Italian Robert Parker, but maybe a bit less corrupted than Robert Parker. And we opened a bottle of this 1999, the 95 we opened of Asinone, and I was not, quite convinced about Asinone. We're talking about Montepulciano. This is actually a blend. You could call it a Super Tuscan. I don't know what does that actually mean, Super Tuscan, yet, but it's a way to define a wine that's got a bit of oak, some international grape variety. So it's somehow to revisit the Tuscan tradition on West Coast or Bordeaux approach to the wine production. Sometimes it's been a bit too much. I don't know. The Super Tuscan has been ruining a bit the concept of the market. They helped a lot the locals, but at the same time they ruin a bit the tradition. You need to be careful with Super Tuscan. But these two are beautiful examples of Super Tuscan. This one, to me, if I would place this one, this is a Saint-Emilion. No, sorry, a Saint-Emilion and a Pauillac made in Tuscany. It's a perfect description. Pauillac made in Tuscany means it's a wine that's got that kind of a marine, crispy type of flavor, already influenced by the ocean, but at the same time, a lot of Mediterranean herbs. We are at 1999, again, I told you more than once, super vintage, not just in Burgundy, not just in Bordeaux, but also in Tuscany and Piedmont. So this would go with some Fiorentina steak, for example, is this big T-bone steak we have in Italy. Raw, please, not too rare, not too hard. You have to be really good, but like with a bit of a fat in between. But it could go also with some wild boar, for example, or some really nice black pigs, like the Pata Negra. Beside that, there is my friend Castello di Rampolla. Maurizia di Napoli is the princess. They own that castle. Her and her brother, Luca di Napoli, they had the castle in heritage from Alceo, which was the father. And this wine was created by Giacomo Takis. Giacomo Takis is the guy that made Sassicaia. If you don't know what is Sassicaia, it means that you have to follow me a bit more, because Sassicaia is the most important wine of Italy. You probably know it if you're a wine collector. He won the award of the best wine in the world in 2015. I don't really trust in this best wine in the world. What does that actually mean? But for sure, it means that bottle that used to cost $150, today maybe it's $500-600. Sometimes I put Sassicaia in collectors, so next time if you want, we will decide to put. To me, if I have to choose between a Sassicaia and Castello di Rampolla, I would choose for Castello di Rampolla. It's the same winemaker, Giacomo Takis, but here Sassicaia is again another Mediterranean Bordeaux. But here the local flavors of there is Sangiovese touch that they in Sassicaia you don't find, gives even a bit more of Tuscany. Talking about biodynamic wineries, they don't put any sulfites. Now they're aging the wine in a beautiful concrete river stone amphoras. They created those amphoras. They don't exist. They don't. I show you a video if you want. And it's an incredible wine and a beautiful castle. And I remember that the first time I had my epiphany with the red wine was with the Vigna d'Alceo from these guys. You're going to have the 2000, as far as I remember, Sammarco 2000, which was kind of a warmer vintage. So that's beautiful bottle to drink in now and the next 2-4 years, I would say. But even now it's better probably than 2-4 years. It's a wine that is reaching the peak from now to the next 2 years, I would say. Again, I'm guessing, because, guessing how the wine will age. It's easy to say, but actually to predict. But technically, you can make a lot of mistakes. Well, so I was actually 17 years old. I was invited on a harvest party with my friend to Castello di Rampolla. That's just a story. And meanwhile, I was looking for the restroom. I actually heard someone was arguing. And there was this beautiful middle-aged castle. Can you imagine a castle like there was, frozen in time? Everything in that castle was older than 300 years old. Everything. From the bathroom to the paintings, to the wardrobes and furniture, everything. The lights, the lightning. They didn't have candles, some of them, yes, but even those yellow light, all the bulbs from the beginning of the century. And I said, what are they discussing about? Who is discussing? It was Maurizia di Napoli with Giacomo Takis. They were discussing in front of a fireplace. And she said, what are you doing here? I would like, why you're planting Petit Verdot and Cabernet in my land? I don't understand this thing. I say, to me, you ruined our wine. And Giacomo Takis was defending his idea of blending Cabernet, Bordeaux blends with the Sangiovese and Sabara. So you have to make those wines more accessible, because Sangiovese is a nasty little bastard. It's a grape variety that tends to go to high acidity. If you want to make upper grade, you need to make it more gentle. And so what people would like. And so they saw me. And so, who are you? Oh, I'm a friend of Giuseppe, Maurizia. We met yesterday, you remember? So what are you looking for? I was looking for the restaurant. And Giacomo Tacchi said, oh, can you please come? And he said, well, yes, of course I can come. We would like to make a test with you. He said, how old are you? 17, I said. So could you please taste this wine for us and tell me what you think? And I tasted, and I literally cried. I was moved. That was my first time. The reason why I am here at 48 years old, surrounded by wine bottles, is because of that specific moment. And I was there in front of Giacomo Tacchi and Maurizio Di Napoli, trying the first release of Vigna d'Alceo, and it was, I think, in the 1995 or 96. And I cried at that. I didn't know wine could give you this emotion. And so Giacomo Tacchi, you see, okay, if we convince a 17 years old wine guy that this wine is an incredible emotion, it means that we're going on the right direction. So that's it. So this is the Sammarco. We're going to find a lot of truffle here, underwoods. So again here, this is wild mushroom sauce would be perfect on a beautiful fillet steak. Something like, even like some lamb with aromatic herbs, which could be a nice choice of pairing. Super Tuscany and Super Lazio. You probably do not recognize your bottle because you could see there is a Habemus, but you have a red label, 2015. He makes only 400 bottles of that wine, so you better like it, okay? To me, guy is making something incredible. Those wines from even the white label, which is like cost half of the price of the one you had, which is kind of $100-$150, depends where you find it. Actually, you don't find it, the 2015, anywhere. I took it from his private cellar, from the winemaker, because I needed some special bottles for this selection. And it's like a beautiful warm hug, this one. It's like, I don't know, it's so motherly, it's so comfort. Usually we can see the wine that we call the wine of the comfort zone. Some Napa Valley wine, some Super Tuscan, because they are so easy to drink that everyone will like it. To me, the exceptional thing of Habemus was that he's able to make wines, especially in the last 3-4 years, that are soft and crispy at the same time. Terroir, personality, and easy drinking. So even an expert or a person that never drank a wine in his life would love. So this is a perfect bottle if you want to open with some friends that don't care about wine and they used to drink like cheesy stuff from the supermarket, to introduce to a different level of sensorial experience with your palate. This is a wine that can probably age forever, but I would suggest to drink in the next couple of years. Those are wines meant to be drank when they're released from the winemakers, so that's his concept. I am not making wine necessarily to age. I want you to get the pleasure now. He actually produced less than 200 grams per plant. Can you imagine 200 grams per plant is nothing. 200 grams, I don't know how to traduce in pounds, but it's nothing. It's like this. It's one grape per plant, possibly, not even. And so, the price of this bottle is actually too cheap because, I buy it for like something like 70 euros, more or less, or resell it. I have it in my wine list for now for 100, 200 because it's finished, but that's more or less the price you buy if you get it directly to the winery. And so it's an incredible bottle, and I think you would like it. I don't know which are your tastes, but it would be interesting if you give me all, whenever you open this bottle, give me your feedback so I understand what you like and how we can build up, a proper selection, a better selection, the next time. It's gonna be easy to do a better than this one here. So 2015 red label. I didn't tell you that one is 100% Cabernet Franc, and which is not easy. I would say 100% Cabernet Franc. Beside my friend from the Foucault brothers or the Allier from Chinon from Allier, and few, I don't know, in Bordeaux, 100% Cabernet Franc. It's difficult. Cheval Blanc is mainly Cabernet Franc, which is possibly one of my favorite red wines, but it's not something easy to find, a good Cabernet Franc. There is Paleo, but that's it. So, but I don't think we need presentation for our friend Vietti. Rocca di Castiglione 2013. I found this bottle in a restaurant, Cork Buds, in New York, was $800. This bottle of wine was the price, all of them. So here in Italy is maybe 250. So you understand the value, what, for $1,000? If you consider that just the Krug and this one here is like 500. So I think it's a good selection, right? What do you think? And 13 incredible vintage in Barolo. My best vintages in Barolo are 96, 99, 13, possibly 2010. Even I'm waiting for 2010 to see how it's going to happen. This is a bottle that Rocca di Castiglione is one of my favorite crew of Castiglione Falletto. I have a video, not from Vietti, from I forget what's the name of it. But it's a guy that makes a beautiful Barolo. Not as expensive this one here in Rocca di Castiglione, but Rocca Viberti, sorry, Andrea Viberti. And that explain perfectly how Rocca di Castiglione is different, for example, from Pernanno and from other crews of Bricoboschis, of Castiglione Falletto that are a bit more tight. You know, Castiglione Falletto is kind of a synthesis of all the souls of Barolo. No? If you go in La Morra, soft. If you go in Serralunga, tight tannins, a lot of menthol and balsamic. If you go in Monforte, you might find more truffly. So, and the Castiglione is exactly in between these sections of different soils called the Formazione di Lequio that gives to the Nebbiolo that incredible expression, impossible to imitate in any other places in the world. So Vietti is an incredible Barolo winemaker. He sold his winery 5 years ago. He's still running the winery, but I don't know for how long he will. So keep this bottle. If you want to make money, there's going to be some economical crisis. I would guess that this bottle in 10 years will cost more than $1,000. So, did I tell you all the wines? I was thinking there was something. I think we did. Yes, Perrieres, Quarz, and no, you have a Chateaunef-du-Pape Reserve 2004 from La Baroche. 1 year before he won the award, 100 points with his pure, the best wine in the world. You know, my friend, I arrived to La Baroche 1 year before Robert Parker because I bought those bottles and I said, this guy, he's a genius, he's a genius, he's a genius. He's going to change the history of Chateaunef-du-Pape, which I think he did. I am a Rayas fan. Rayas, I cannot put it, the bottle of Rayas. If I will, maybe a Pignan. But now, one bottle of Rayas, I cannot find it for less than $600-700. So, I don't know. Well, if I find it, if I'll become rich, I'll send it to you once for Christmas next year. But to me, Rayas is the quintessential, super traditional type of Chateaunef-du-Pape. But beside that, I would say the La Baroche is following that steps. Slightly more creamy than Rayas. We're talking about totally wild cellar. The place is, you know, kind of dirty. He used to be, like 15 years ago, a really young guy. And he was running the winery in such a completely mess. And he was so gentle to host us. And when we tried their reservoir, we're talking about vineyards that are between 90 and 100 years old. It's a reserve. And, you know, I don't know if you know those freestanding bush you have in small trees in really small, close to the ground with a lot of stones called Les Cailloux. And it's an incredible climate condition, despite the fact that the soil is really hot. There is a wind that constantly blows, especially during the summer, that refresh. And that give you those beautiful, spicy, creamy aromas. 2004, amazing moment to drink it. It was not as warm as that 2005. It kind of a shy vintage, I would say, 2004. Perfect to drink it now. I think you have enough fun, and I think I was able even to bore you. So I don't know if you want to ask me to make another video for the next shipment. But the idea is, by the way, this video is split in parts. You don't have to listen all over because you can just go down and check where the video is talking about one specific wine, so it's going to be easier for you. But I'll remind you that any question you have, I'm here for you. And we're going to have a really long winter probably here, and they're going to do another lockdown next week. So happy to stay with you, happy to help you in any possible way if you have any question about this incredible selection we did. Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon here at Rimessa. Ciao.